It's got to do with the woes that surround the struggling Comair, as business rescue practitioners there confirming that there is no reasonable chance of saving it. Well, let's try and get more details. Our business reporter, Kopano Gumbi, is in studio with us, joining us from the wall. Kopano, I'm not going to say try and give us the full prognosis, because there's no way for you to have gone through that much detail, but just the highlights as to why the business rescue practitioners are of the view that this thing is not salvageable.
Fully, it's a sad state of affairs for Comair. You know, it's a 76-year-old airline. It's been in operation as a proudly South African business for all those many years, and to see it come to this end is quite disappointing, and I'm sure even for the airline. So the business rescue practitioners telling us today that there was not enough money. In fact, I should say that Comair could not raise enough money to get itself back on and into the skies again. We know that at the beginning of June, they were grounded because they said they'd run out of money to just operationalize the airline. And now they were not able to raise the funding they thought they could in the requisite time, and this has led the business practitioners to this decision.
On the 6th, this was just 2 days ago, an article appeared on News 24, and it was an article quoting British Airways in the UK, who were quote-unquote saddened by what was happening with Comair. And I'm raising them specifically because part of the planes that Comair operated here locally, it was also British Airways. That relationship, are you aware of what is going to happen regarding that? Are they going to take their aircraft back to the UK? How's that relationship?
Well, I mean, the way it worked really is that Comair bought a license to use British Airways just domestically, at least. And so the relationship between Comair and British Airways is a financial transaction. It's a business. The contracts are in place, and those will probably be discussed as the next steps get taken. We're not quite sure yet whether this means that the grounding is forever and Comair is going to shut down its doors, or whether there is some possibility somewhere that somebody could come through and say, no, we have enough funding, we guarantee this money, and let's try again with Comair.
And one of the most obvious questions, it's the jobs. Workers are now officially out of jobs, at least for the time being, up until something new is said. Have you had any reaction from unions like NUMSA, for example?
Well, we actually did reach out to NUMSA just before we joined you here, and they say they're not yet ready to speak to the media. I imagine they're consulting with the union members that are affected by this decision or getting the news. I mean, we know NUMSA have been very clear that they have not had much joy in their relations or their conversations with Comair and the business rescue practitioner leading up to this point, saying they could not get as much information as they needed to try and sort of secure or allay the fears of its members. And so now they should be looking to find out what exactly this means, how soon it means that people will be without jobs, and the processes that relate to being grounded for good.
Wow. What a final moment. I wonder, Kopano, whether there's something to be said about the fiduciary duties of the CEO, Glenn Osmond. This is someone that the union, NUMSA, at least, has not spoken about in beautiful terms. This is someone that they think has been irresponsible in the manner in which he has dealt with this matter. Might there be something to be said about that, or is it still too early to say stuff like that?
Well, at this point, the business rescue practitioners are still leading the business. The minute it went into business rescue, they become the executive and operationalizers of this organization. And so much of NUMSA's frustration was also directed at them. They had a feeling that the BRPs were not really willing to do what was necessary to see the airline running.
Because they were being paid huge sums of money every month.
Well, the business business is quite intensive, fully, to be fair to the practitioners. It is a lot of work. It involves a lot of technicalities and detail, and you become the caretaker of an operation, of a business, of an airline that was struggling. It was deeply indebted. It was struggling to get routes, and it could not increase prices while the input costs were rising, as we all experience with oil, the petrol prices, and you can't increase the price that you charge of a ticket as much as petrol is going up. And so all of those little incremental costs add up.
You mentioned something very interesting. I know that one of our colleagues here, very, very angry, and they felt hard done by. And it's no laughing matter, because they had bought tickets just hours before Comair announced at the stroke of midnight that they were grounding their airplane. So ticket sales were still on. What is going to happen to those people? Will they ever recover their monies?
Well, should the business be liquidated, they will most likely recover some of their money. There's no guarantee it would be all of it, because, of course, if the liquidation is the next step here, you have to pay your creditors first. There's a process, and there's a long line of very, very, very deep pockets that need to be paid back, given how expensive it is to run an airline. And so they would start with those creditors and then eventually roll down to consumers who would most likely get their refund.
Wow. What a final chapter. Kopano Gumbi, thank you very much for the time being. That's our business reporter, Kopano Gumbi.